appreciate everybody being on the call today. We're super excited to have Erin Offord, who is the President, CEO, Executive Director for Big Thought, which is an initiative out of Dallas, Texas, that is funded in part by the Walmart Foundation. They're one of our sister programs, and they're focused on workforce development in a very innovative approach and creating a workforce development incubator model nationally, which has some relevance to all of our sites as you're working with young people who are at Opportunity Youth, essentially. As we look at our future funding with Walmart Foundation, this will be an area of interest and priority, and it fits with where most of our sites have moved, from police reform to youth deflection to let's empower them and make them successful. So Erin, we're going to turn it over to you, ask you to introduce yourself in a little bit more detail and tell us about Big Thought and then about the initiative, and then there'll be time for Q&A and we can talk about how we might work together.
Definitely. Thank you, Colleen and Jim. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Erin, just to begin, I have to say this, and it's sort of inside baseball, but Daryl Jones is my deputy in this project. Okay. And one of his cardinal rules as a law enforcement officer is if you're on time, you're late. He is late. I just have to say that. He will not live us down.
And I apologize profusely for being late. I was on another call and could not get off of it, so my apologies.
I was going to say, he's not going to let you down with that one, Mr. Jones.
That's sure. Right. I've known him for 25 years.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to be here and allow you a little time to get in, Daryl, that like before we jumped in and started. I've been knowing Colleen and Jim for a little bit, as Colleen mentioned. We're part of the Walmart initiative that really kind of explored the way that we connect how we connected workforce skill development with youth in general. And then through the network at Walmart, we started understanding the Opportunity Youth demographic a little more than we had traditionally. It's about 2-3 years now. We've been part of this network and ActNow as well. And so through the years, we just started learning more about our organizations and really trying to connect the dots of some synergies that we all do across the country. And so it was interesting to learn about this group and what you're doing and what we're trying to do. And so we left out the recent Aspen Institute, and we were just like, let's get a little more intentional. And so that's a little bit of what today is about, to intentionally share with you a little bit of our work as an organization based in Dallas. And then we have some colleagues that actually will be joining Oklahoma City pretty soon to do a little more digging. And that actually stretches our initiative, which I'll share with you today. Totally meant to be conversational. And so feel free to stop or ask questions as I walk through. This is meant to tackle a few things for you, but to primarily share what we're doing that I think connects into some of the work that you all are doing as well national. And just was excited to hear where you all are from and the different ways that y'all are connecting. And so feel free to jump in as I share out. So I'll just go in and let me see if I can get my screen. It was working earlier. Okay. I don't share on Zoom a lot, but let me see if y'all are seeing a picture of me. Okay, great. I'll move on because it's not really about me. But I represent a team too. Did it go to the next slide? I'm sorry, y'all. Let me make sure that I can navigate it. Did it go to the next slide? Opportunity for
Yep.
Sorry, just get the buttons. We do teams a lot. And so I was looking for that. So the real point today is just to kind of share a little bit about Big Thought. We do want to share with you the work of our National Incubator. It's based around Opportunity Youth and what we've been learning. We'll do a little activity. I'd love to learn more a little bit about you all, virtual handshake, and then talk a little bit about the purpose. The National Opportunity Youth Incubator is a pilot We've been exploring it through the lens of industry connections and opportunity youth work organizations, meaning organizations who work with young people, but often don't have the accessibility to the workforce skill and the way that those things connect. That's been what we've been piloting for these past 12 months. And there is a window even to include more organizations in this incubator, which we'll talk about here today with you all. We do have outcomes, and so we do base the work around some projections of our data-driven spaces we've been designing the work around, and I could share that with you and leave open for questions and things that may connect further as we continue to build on this national network. Again, with Walmart's backing, but also just the natural connections we have, at least in Dallas and regionally, with community-based organizations who, as you know, are really struggling and streamlining and making some hard decisions. And there's a space where we don't want to dismiss the workforce skill building that we know young people will need even during the current climate. And so it's kind of interesting of what we've been learning as well. I'd love to hear in those spaces as well from you. This is a team that is doing the work. Just to show you Ania and Christina, they'll be visiting Oklahoma City. And so I represent them really here today. They've been really doing a lot of these community conversations around the city and around the area. It's really Dallas and Tarrant County, which is Dallas and Fort Worth. They're about 30 miles apart. And so regionally, we've been spreading our wings, but also nationally. And I'll kind of share that a little bit with you as well in a bit. As you may know, Opportunity Youth is defined as a 16 to 24-year-old that is not in a registered school formally or is not in a IRS waged employment opportunity. They may have some gig events. They may do some things that's a little bit not IRS related, but still cash driven, barbershops, entrepreneurial efforts. So we do know that that's an interest for young people of that age more. And how do we provide our entrepreneurial opportunities and not just IRS recognized jobs? But the bigger concept is there's a group of aged kids, young people, young adults that just aren't engaged in a school environment or not in a workforce situation. This also includes veterans and youth of military families. We've also been looking at neurodivergent populations as well. We include that as an opportunity youth demographic. And how do we become more inclusive and stretch our definition of youth and all youth connecting to workforce skills? There are 5 million of what is defined as opportunity youth young adults in the country. And then Texas is 4th in the country of identifying those opportunity youth communities. Hopefully you're still seeing my slide. Yep. So I'd like to maybe take a minute. I think we do program delivery and we also manage ecosystems and we do learning systems in our school time environments. And what we know in both of those, but particularly in our system space, which is where this current work lands, is even systems are run by individuals. And it's still important to engage individuals, even in systems thinking. And so we've been able to kind of navigate that through individuals, organizations, and our young people. So those all make up the Opportunity Youth Network. But before I get too far, I'd love to kind of know the group here on the call, especially maybe your name, and we can popcorn it very briefly, and maybe the organization you're representing. And I know you may all know each other. And maybe in your introduction to me, if you could think about your first job, if you were a 14 or 15-year-old self, when I first had a job, what was the one skill that you think you learned in that first job? And maybe that's just a quick little popcorn y'all all can use to introduce yourself. I'll jump in. I'm, like Colleen said, I'm president and CEO of Big Thought here, but I've been at the organization for 20 years. So I'm an OG, as they call it. And I've been around in the programming and systems space. And it's really important to me that I'm in this seat now as a leader. It's been about 6-7 months now. And I'm able to really make sure that our youth co-design space is prevalent, that everything we do is with young people. And that's been exciting for me. And as I think about my 14-year-old self, which was my first job, and I worked at the St. Louis Cathedral. I'm from New Orleans. So I worked literally as a tour guide at the big cathedral that's in the middle of the French Quarters. Every time you see a picture of New Orleans, it's usually the cathedral that's shared. And I had a neighbor who helped me get that job in a summer opportunity. And I was nervous. And, but the skill that it helped me was definitely speaking in front of people, presentation skills, being comfortable with sharing your voice, and, you know, quick on my feet. And so those were some key things I was able to learn as I became the tour guide for a couple of years at the St. Louis Cathedral in New Orleans. That's even advanced me to my current role that I do today in what I'm doing right now. Would anybody else want to go and just quickly name and the organization and maybe a skill or two that you even remember that you still hold true today that you learned on maybe your first job experience?
I'll go next. It's Colleen Koppel. With ActNow, I'm the community of practice coordinator. I would say my first significant job, besides being a babysitter as the oldest of 8 children, was the summer between my graduating from high school and my freshman year in college. I had 3 jobs all at once. So I learned multitasking. I delivered newspapers in the morning, worked as an office assistant during the day, and waitressed at night. So I learned how to juggle lots of things and trying to do them well. So
Yeah, very
thanks.
good. Thank you, Colleen. Anyone else?
I'm Tiana. I live in New York City in East Harlem, Mission, New York. We're doing community development. And my first job at 14, I worked at our local grocery store in a small town that I grew up in. And I think so many things I learned from that job, which I held all through high school, but probably just working with the community, like interacting in a professional space with people from our community.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
People
Tina.
skills.
Yes.
I'll go. My name's Tanner, and I'm on the ActNow team. I run the communications. I also have a consulting business and work with a bunch of other nonprofit organizations working on a whole bunch of various things. My first real job was at a movie theater serving popcorn, and I still have an addiction to popcorn. You know, the kind with the butter on it from the movie theater.
Layered butter, layered butter.
The one good thing that came from COVID is they started packing the huge to-go packs so we can go pick those up for movie night at home. But I think the biggest thing I learned was really like hard work and digging in and like not even tangible skills from the job. Like I learned customer service and things like that, but probably the most valuable was if I pick up these extra shifts, then I make this extra money that I could go and do this with, and really kind of like the foundation for creating freedom through working hard and kind of having the life that I wanted.
Great, thank you.
Well, I'm Jim Koppel, founder of ActNow, and my first job was a lot boy in a car dealership. I had to start the cars and wash them, and the manager of the car lot every day would inspect my work. And so I learned what it was to complete a job and to do it well. And that's stuck with me in various jobs that I've had since. So.
Very good. Thank you, James.
I'll go next. Again, my apologies for being late. My first job was at the age of 12, and I was delivering papers first thing in the morning. And ironically, based on today's call, what I learned was timeliness. And I had to have the papers delivered before people began to wake up. And so that stuck with me for many years, as Jim has already reminded me. And my next job after that was working at a hot shops. And I learned to cook, which was very good, especially during my bachelor days. So
Thank you for sharing.
nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you. Great, I have time. Go ahead, John.
When I was cutting grass, 14, 15 with the landscaping bunch, and I learned pretty early that they wanted the work done and they were not super interested in my excuses as to why something didn't get done in a timely manner. So I learned to problem solve and follow through to make sure it got done at the right time.
Thank you.
Well, my name's Amory Russell, and I'm part of the ActNow team. I work with logistics. And my first job, I was 16 years old, worked for my dad in his fruit market. And one of the things I learned from dad, a ton of things, but one is respect for whoever walks in the door, how much, how little they had. Dad would give things away to people who had food stamps, and there's no judgment there. You respect the person that's walking in the door, show them kindness, and be compassionate. So I learned that from him.
Very good. Thank you.
My name is oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lex.
My name is Lexi Sundberg. I work with ActNow and also Mission New York. And one of my first jobs was a librarian, an assistant librarian. And I learned how to problem solve because when patrons come in and say, I need a theology book, and all I know about it is that it's red and really thick, you have to figure out what that book is pretty quickly.
Definitely. Thank you.
My name is Jay. I'm Lexi's father. I'm proud of that. And I live in New York City in East Harlem. We're Mission, New York. And my first job also was mowing grass, not with John. That would have been fun. But I learned that I don't like to mow grass. And I learned that if I don't do well in my school, I'll probably be cutting grass longer than I wanted to. So I don't think I learned anything else from that job other than I don't want to do this, so I better work hard at the things I do want to do.
That's good. Prioritization. Great. Is there anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sarah.
I can go. I'm Sarah Spath. I'm the Director of Programs for the Social Justice Initiative at Bryn Mawr College, and we're involved in evaluation with one of the ActNow sites. And I'm in Philadelphia now, but I grew up in Houston, and my first job was in childcare. And I would say I learned skills of connection, relational skills, not just verbally, but also non-verbally, especially working with really young children.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you. Is there Kimberly? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
My name is Kimberly Jones. I am the president of the board of a group called Stopping Acts of Violence for Everyone. My first job, I'm in Michigan. My first job was at a Burger King in Detroit because I grew up downriver and in Detroit. And what I learned, much like the other gentleman said, this is hard work. I don't want to work this hard for the rest of my life, so I'm going to get all the degrees. So I have 4 degrees, a doctorate and a law degree, inclusive of the 4 degrees, because I'm like, that's just too much. But what I did learn, I learned like logistics and getting things done in a timely fashion. Working in fast food really teaches you that. So I think it was helpful in many ways.
Very good.
It's like my father used to say, Kimberly, what your brains don't know, your back will do.
Exactly. Thank y'all. I think we got everybody. Shelley, did I miss Shelley? I was just looking, making sure we got everybody who wanted to contribute. Thank you. I appreciate it. As I was listening, and even hearing today, like even then it was grounded in the work that probably captured you and maintained you to be engaged in certain careers or professions through your life that you may not even realize, and partly shaped who you are right now, even as a professional. Hearing about the no excuses problem solver. There's things that becomes very, very important in your professional careers. Complete work, do good work. Someone mentored you along the way, regardless if it was a movie theater, which I also worked at as well. But the multitasking, the ability to manage a couple of things at a time, those were all kind of very different in what y'all were explaining, but the opportunities allowed that skill to be developed. And so what we took a step back on and realized is we wanted to create a space that gave us a purpose to allow young people to experience some of those skills. Because if you're not engaged in school and you're not engaged in a true work environment that allows that, then where is your skill building going to take place? And so we started talking to kids a little more deeply too. And we heard, especially post-COVID, y'all, it was really hard on our young people. They really went into a isolation mode. A lot of things became more important to be digital, you know, to the point where you can go to the movies now, you can go pick up your food and bring home, even because they had to pivot with COVID. Well, what happened is our young people, from feedback we've been getting, because we work with a lot of them, were saying it's too digital now, it's too virtual. And they actually are yearning for more social contact. They are wanting to actually connect in a more in-person situation, and they're not given those opportunities, so they don't know how. And so when you say, come on down to a meeting and let's meet in person, some are like jumping at it. Oh my God, I can connect with another social group. And some are really reluctant and are really trying to figure out how do they connect in a social environment that's not virtual. So we started understanding that and really dug down deep in our purpose for the incubator work too, which was also adult focused, but we do involve youth directly. And we talked about the way to collaborate, and organizations really wanted to work more closely with one another. We understood that we needed to focus on a skill plus hiring, maybe a different approach for employers to look at young people's resumes or their experience, so that we're not just looking at it through the same credential lens as we traditionally have looked at it, but we're looking at it from a different alternative perspective. What skill does a young person have that can allow them to transfer in a workplace environment? Me being a tour guide at that moment, for one, it just taught me to do my research. I had to learn the history and be accurate on the information of the church. I also just had to be open and learn very quickly. If I don't know the answer, don't make it up. Just tell them you'll find it and you'll do the research. So there was some real decision-making and problem skills that I solved on the fly that I think helps me today. But I had that muscle memory to try it. And a lot of our young people are not having those types of experiences. The employer engagement is really important too. The incubator work is just not for the young person or the organization with the young people. This is also open for industry partners to also understand how kids, especially those in marginalized communities, are still an asset to your workforce. And it's not about, you know, missionary work or, you know, charity. This is about the fact that our young people also are assets into a work environment. And for us to have industry partners working and engaging with us in the incubator in that way. And then we do credentialize and offer badging. We think that's important to kind of quantify those experiences. So working at a camp at a local church for vacation Bible study is a very informal way of doing some work that with a badge or a credential can actually equalize and represent that young person's experience in a workforce situation. So that was very important as we built the incubator work moving forward. But these are the sort of purposes that we work through as we're building the pilot together. Just to kind of contextually show you, Dallas is 11% of basically 11% of the young people in Dallas we are evaluating as disconnected, maybe they're opportunity youth. And then the county itself in Dallas is pretty sprawling. And so the southern sector of Dallas is the size of Atlanta. And I didn't know that originally, but it's very intertwined with highways and byways, and it has these sprawling communities that often don't connect with one another too. And so we had to really look at the geography of Dallas. And I just wanted to go back. And then the county is about 12%, meaning 40,000 young people are defined as disconnected. So the county itself and the city of Dallas represent some higher numbers of disconnection than we like. And pretty much throughout the state, they're one of the highest ones. And the issue we have with that really resonates for us in this community is also Dallas is one of the higher end communities in the state that has economic mobility. We have a lot of 500 Fortune companies that have moved here. So we are seeing economic mobility increase, but we also are seeing gaps between young people, poverty, marginalization, and opportunity youth numbers increase. So we see a disconnect between economic mobility and the opportunities that our young people can see. That's why the purpose of this incubator was important. So when we started, we actually now have a national footprint, which is why I think it's important today that we just extend to a different audience, because now we have an opportunity through the work to actually involve other cities or other organizations throughout the country. We even have one in Hawaii that my team is chomping at the bit to go do a site visit for. And so the point of that is that a lot of people around the country are dealing with the issue of how to work with young people in a thriving, successful job, and how to connect that to a trusted workplace industry opportunity. And there's a win-win there. And so as we continue to grow, the footprint has grown. And so we've been able to actually engage different organizations throughout the country, which is exciting for us. Many of you may have heard of Unlock Potential. It's been discussed as a real opportunity. It's really what Walmart had built its initiative around. And it's about the 21st century skill and the recognizing of the importance of that. So I'm just sharing a little bit of what that may mean for you if you've heard of that. There are some hiring practices too that the Unlock Potential Network was really working with Walmart through. It was really focused on creating pathways for young people that transitioned them into workforce opportunities. And Walmart was a premier leader in that space. And for years they were working on that. Since the George Floyd murders and COVID, they went back into really talking about it from an economic mobility. That's where we got started. But the Unlock Potential is the recognition of how you credit those 21st century skills, which are important. The two frameworks we use is this Unlock Potential, which I just shared with you. This is what was deemed as very important. It was how to work with mobilizing youth voice. We also learned from community partners, not just ourselves, but we work through partnership. We talked a lot about policies and narrative. Shaping the narrative is really important. What are the ways that we think about young people who might not have a job and sort of box them in a way that we had to reframe the narrative. We had to really think about school too. Is school the most engaging space for a young person who's getting in trouble, who may be on a track? Is there another way without a school time learning, for example, we can still engage young people? Because some spaces, school and school reform issues are coming up. They're really becoming critical conversations we're having, at least in Dallas, is because we know our educators are working hard, but there are some targeted ways that are overrepresentation, especially our young Black men, are not engaged in the school at a certain age. At sophomore years, we're starting to see the drop off. What happens to those young men and women even at that point, and how do they get their certification, their GED, or are there other alternative methods we can support youth in addition to school? And that became really clear with our policy and our narrative. We built a framework, which I'll share with you just a little bit, that married this idea, and that's where a lot of this work comes in together with the incubator work. We value the creative skills. We're a creative nonprofit. We're a 38-year-old nonprofit that's based out of art, and we've been focused on creative skill building in our school time spaces. We believe in the journey and a pathway for a young person. So we saw some connection there with Unlock Potential. We believe in credentializing as well as digital badging. And we believe in a learner-centered way to approach our work where the youth are at the center. And so we adopted a creator archetype. And I can share this with you all. We've been working on this for 18 months now. It's gone on 2 years. And this is a little bit of our data-driven approaches and our history in what we do in creating a creator. And so we call it creator archetype because it's the framework and the skill sets we think are very important to build on that 21st century young person. Someone who can design, think. Digital fluency is very important, the competencies around that. We believe in school and academics alongside the artistry and creative outlets. We believe in social emotional foundations. It's been kind of interesting this past year to look at the name games that's going around, and SEL has been negatively, connotated around some of the things that's happening nationally, but we believe in social emotional and emotional intelligence. And we believe that as a skill set towards creativity. And then we believe in civic and service and the ability to give back to a community. And so those two frameworks is what kind of moves us forward in that way. Skill plus hiring, I just was going to briefly share with you. The idea is to prioritize that skill versus maybe the degrees. And so I'm looking and laughing with you, Ms. Kimberly Jones, because you, through that early job, was like, I gotta go get my degrees because I know I don't want to do that hard work, which is really important. But there's also young people who are missing opportunities because they don't have a degree, but we don't maybe have the emphasis to consider their skill that they had achieved that can incorporate the way that they add an asset to a company. So we've been doubling down on educating the plus part of skill plus hiring, which is the social capital, which is the mindset, it's the grit, it's the resilience. To Mr. Jones's, apology, being early is on time. Those are things that do make a difference in equalizing a young person who may not have a traditional criteria of experience. And how do we value that throughout the work that we honor? So this is what we say when we say skill plus hiring techniques. This is educating our industry partners to think about skill plus, second chance hiring in a non-traditional way of how you think about a young person working in your company. We think it's important, and I just wanted to raise up to you as well. Secondly, data-driven. So people who are part of our cohort, we have partners and we do the skill plus hiring analysis. We share back our data and our findings with all of our partners. We're doing a literature review around opportunity youth work across the country. We provide a report to the organizations directly to kind of give you a portfolio and a profile of your work as you try to learn more about opportunity youth. We have organizations that have never heard of opportunity youth and realized they had a bunch of them in their centers and wanted to connect to a bigger group who also were dealing with some of the same issues. Younger people that were there every day, they just weren't doing anything but hanging around, how to mobilize that in a collective way. And then we actually integrate our data with other national works and really use data-driven practices among the cohort. Equally, as we look at advocacy, and this is just a little bit of the federal advocacy and just advocacy work in general, that's been very important. We've looked at our state policies. We've actually been able to give some feedback to some bills and some actual information through the Texas state legislation. Texas is a little different, y'all. We do a 2-year legislative session and then we take off 2 years. And so we have a 1-year session and then they take off 2 years. So they just wrapped up their legislative session and then we won't have another session for another 2 years. So a lot of bills were discussed. Some were not positive for opportunity youth spaces, to be honest with you. We had a lot of bills that we were a little disappointed on. And the Texas state legislation probably was a little bit ahead of the national curve on DEI, anti-DEI, I should say, because of the last session, which was about 3 years ago now, CRT, banning of books, that was all part of a 3-year window. And so this legislation had caught up with the national movement a little bit, and we did not see much progression in ways to support opportunity youth work. There's one bill that actually went through, which, it's a mixed bill. Vaping, unfortunately, has been an issue to kind of put youth in juvenile justice systems, even into alternative school settings. So vaping had been very punitive in our school systems. And they removed the vaping punitive criteria, but what was added and did get voted and is now a bill is a out of school time suspension for as young as kindergarten students. And that actually passed in this last legislative session. So they have, we have prioritized advocacy efforts to stay informed for one, and to also learn in what's happening in other states and make sure we're aware of national perspectives. So advocacy has become very important in what we've been discussing in this cohort as well, just to remain informed. And every state's different, every state's interpreting different, and then what's the impact at a federal level. I will say AmeriCorps and Job Corps cuts that we recently discovered has really impacted a lot of questioning from our young people and the organizations is where can a young person get a job? That's really and summertime is now, where can our young people get summer jobs? There are quite a few young people who were impacted by Job Corps cuts. So we're kind of responding in that, but we're not minimizing the policy and the advocacy needs. And then lastly, I'll just share that this is a little bit of what the project itself is committed to. And I'm not going to read them all, but we talked about credentialing. We've talked about employers will work with skills and hiring practices. They will work with our young people to look for those job opportunities. Youth voice is at the center. So our young people are often presenting in the cohort. They are members and getting feedback. We, of course, have talked about our policy and the commitment to advocacy. We have opened up the sessions. We still have a window of time. So that's why with Colleen and James' conversation, we just wanted to introduce the idea to you. There is still a window if we wanted to accept new organizations. It's virtual, so it allows that flexibility. Participants really walk away, I think, with some skill, training information, and the idea to how to badge your young people if you work with young people. In that way, we allow the opportunity for young people too. If you'd like to incorporate young people, there's youth sessions we do together to allow that. And then we do have a way to incentivize some partnership stipends, because we understand that time it takes to be part of this. And so there is an opportunity to do some activation with some support and resources as needed. So I have done a lot of talking. This is just a calendar of the sessions. We're kind of, halfway through, but we told Colleen and James that we would be willing, if anyone is interested, to still incorporate some interest in the network. And we have a session coming up in June. I think about once a month, we try to keep a cadence to involve this network of partners. We focus on the topic of opportunity youth information. And then we also have industry at the table who's helping think through the ways that we can support the matchmaking, really, that's important for opportunity youth to get those better jobs. And then I do have this QR code. I think it takes you to more information. If you'd like to sign up or forward on to someone else, please feel free to, I think it takes you directly to a link, and then I'm always available. You can hit me up too as well to get more information. But I'm representing a great team that's really been navigating this for us for about a year now. And we just wanted to make sure we share the learnings, but also the opportunity is still open, especially if there's more interest to get connected. It's a great group. We are learning a lot. Our young people are at the table helping educate us. And so that's really been important. I'll leave you with this and definitely want to take questions. There have been 4 pillars that our young people have been interested in sharing with us that is very important to them that we try to incorporate in this work. They wanted to have dignity. That was a term they used a lot, especially after COVID and being a younger person, millennial, Gen Z, they often feel like they're being overlooked. And so being heard and having dignity was very important. They wanted mentorship. They wanted a mentor in a truer way and in a more intimate way that allowed someone to share skills with them and offer that insight. They wanted the peer-to-peer. That was very important, that again, not just virtually, but face-to-face. And so we are trying to think of what a face-to-face could look like for our young people if we have this network, and we're still thinking about that. And then they actually wanted just to have general respect and knowledge and skill building. They thought that those were helpful things to build up their resume, to take them on to the next level of what their interest is. And so we've kind of grounded our work in those 4 pillars, hearing from our young people, and just so excited to have shown that to you today and open the door. If any of you have more questions for sure right now, or just want a little more information, definitely reach out to us, because I know y'all are doing some great necessary work where you are as well.
Erin, thank you. Very helpful and very instructive. And I think there's great possibility for intersecting with your work as our youth deflection programs evolve. Any questions for Erin? Silence.
Erin, I'm wondering if it might be helpful for us to talk about what it means for our sites. So let me attempt to do that, reflecting back what you've presented, and then correct anything that I get wrong. But for our ActNow sites, most of our sites have convened a broad coalition of community groups and done listening sessions and breaking bread events, and they're really in touch with major issues percolating in their communities, and they have, most of them, the capacity to convene key stakeholders to tackle an issue. So Oklahoma City, for example, has great relationships with the existing workforce development players and related organizations that can impact workforce development. So the incubator, what it can share with that network is this ability to implement the training platform that allows a young person to enter into the system on their own and progress through it, earning through badging and certifications that are legitimate and highly respected, and follow a learning curve that is job skills and probably technology, computer related skills particularly related. And that it provides employers then with a certification that this young person has achieved these levels of skills. And rather than a GED or a high school diploma, they can count on this young person having these skills as they bring them into an entry level position.
Yes.
So what it offers to your workforce development is an alternative way to help kids who are struggling with a traditional school setting to still come back in and access sort of sideways from a different platform, a very legitimate, employer-friendly and youth-friendly platform that gives employers confidence, but also gives young people a new opportunity. Is that?
Yes. That's it in a nutshell too, Colleen. And the other thing I'll emphasize is it allows an alternative entry for some young people who will always be overlooked. Because there's an achievement level of that young person who's going to go to the job interview, who's going to put the shirt on and the tie and be ready to take on the interview questions, which is great, and we value that. But it also allows a deeper dive through organizations for that young person that needs a little bit motivation. They might need a little bit of help to get to the interview, because that's what the Opportunity Youth demographic represents. It represents a disengaged group of young folks that does exist and are often invisible and silent, and will never have that opportunity. Hopefully they will through the connections here. So if you're representing organizations, for one, define it. Because once they realize what we're talking about, they realize, oh my God, we do have Opportunity Youth that are in my network or in my centers. We offer training, the credentializing, the skills for the organizations to know how to advocate and support that young person as well. And we offer that to the industry, who's hearing it differently for those that mission aligns and wants to service that group of kids. Everybody wants a great workforce. And they're talking often in circles is what we've seen, meaning industry people can't find enough people to hire for jobs. Where are the young people? And then young people who don't feel safe or trusted can't find the job. But what's happening is they're not talking to each other and they're overlooking each other. Hence the incubator work with training and skills. We sort of bridge that gap a little bit together. Now, Mr. John, you're helping us figure out the ground game approach to this network, because we've been doing this at an air game virtual level, but we've often been asked, what can you offer at a community level? Can you come into my neighborhood? And we've been reluctant because we just didn't know what scale looks like. So when Colleen and James talked, and you're at OKC, so we can drive there, it's a little closer, but we can test and see what's happening in your neighborhood, in your community, and is there connectivity for this in our incubator too? So our team is coming down to learn from you all, especially what's going on in the community and what becomes relevant with what we've built, and how to train and offer those in a different way, more connected with the real touch, which offers us to visit OKC next week. But yes, that's exactly it. From a knowledge sharing, credentializing, and then the system space. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can train up some of your organizations or industries in your community. It's just maybe how that looks may look different, look and feel different as we grow together.
Erin, what about, go ahead, Tiana.
Well, and this may be too specific of a question. First of all, Erin, this is beautiful. This is a beautiful program. I love it. We live in East Harlem, and we're just at we're at the embryo stage, right? So we just started getting our feet in the water. But when I listen to you, one of the pieces, and again, it might be too specific, but I know for our community, because we'll be focusing on immigrant youth. So but even in our wider community is trauma, you know, so we have, everybody has experienced trauma, and it's not, it is getting the job, but it's also keeping the job. And so I think I hear that in some of the, when I look at your circles on the first or second slide, but I'm just, that for me is a big piece of this, because we have to help our young people to keep those jobs. Sometimes they're their worst enemy. Just because nobody's talked to them about how to deal with the trauma in their lives. So.
No, you're correct, Tiana. And I think what we're looking at is there's always a bridge that's needed with the next step for that young person, whether it's going to college. So we have a male mentoring program for college. It's not just access, it's to help them through college. We're betting on the fact that this community-based model, meaning the org that's closest to the kids, we activate them to be the remaining bridge builder for the young people's needs. So we try to connect that with the industry partner. So the industry partner understands it's just not getting them through the threshold. It's calling that community-based organization, maybe we're there to support, so they have what they need to support that young person. So we're betting on the fact that the industry partner understands the community, and we want to value that. But we're betting on the community-based group to remain the bridge builder to help connect what the needs are for that young person, whether it's getting them the suit, whether it's getting them the transportation to get to the job. Those are also the things we address in the training, because we know that that relationship mentor, coach, supporter is needed to support not all young people, but some, if they're neurodivergent. That's what we focused on. Family of a military family, and then trauma impacted. Those are the ones that we navigate through the community-based organization, who becomes the bridge builder to support that young person.
Thank you
Erin,
so much.
To follow up on Tiana's question, is big because several of our sites are beginning to look into the immigrant youth issue in terms of the unique needs and obviously some of the current trauma that they're experiencing. But this big thought, and you're looking at specific populations, but what about the immigrant population?
Yes. We, through our partner groups, they're represented. So in the network, some partners are there, Catholic Charities. I mean, there are other organizations that are addressing it a lot more holistically than we are. That's not necessarily our lane directly. We then partner and bring a coalition together. And that's what's happened in one of our communities is Vickery Meadow. And Vickery Meadow Institute, their community-based organization, they've come in and now become the expert. They're leading some of our sessions. They're able to have capacity to do more for the immigrant community. We are seeing, for example, before school ended, after school numbers decreased in our program. We started losing our families because they were no longer trusting and comfortable with coming as a group to pick up their children from after school because of ICE and deportation that's hovering. And so they quietly and politely said, we're going to pull my child out of after school. I just don't trust it. If we go to pick up my child, we're all going to get picked up together. That was a real thing. We had to address it in some training with our practitioners. We had to hear and listen to what does that mean for a workforce opportunity, which a lot of our young men in the Latino community especially do work. So it's not that they don't work. It is just the work, the type of work, the support that they needed in this environment has really shifted under our feet, James. So we've had to really look at experts to help craft those supports that are needed in our immigrant population. We also have a high Nigerian community that's been moving into a traditional part of which has been a Latino community. So there's a lot of Ghanaian and Nigerian impact and importing into the country that has a new expertise level we're needing to make sure we're keeping relevant to the ever-changing face of immigration in Dallas, because it's a pretty diverse community. And Dallas is very welcoming. And so we've been able to kind of hear it from experts and partners more than what we have in-house.
Great, thank you. Shelley Hansen, who's not able to talk evidently, posted a question. What are the top 2 to 3 things other sites should consider when applying your framework?
Sure. I definitely think you should already have some community family engagement effort that has a capacity, a skill set, an expert that's doing work with community. What we've seen is people and organizations that may not already have that built try to do that here, and you need to already have a lane of your own efforts with community youth or family work is what I definitely would recommend. This is not necessarily a space to build it while you're doing this work. It's really a committed time, for example. It's an emerging leadership opportunity, I think, for someone in your team. So I definitely would look at a capacity or someone who can lead this effort on behalf of your work than thinking it's something one person, a leader, can do on the fly. I think it's a committed capacity, but it's also a great emerging leadership, knowledge, expertise level experience for someone. I also think the ability to support and find your own industry partners or someone that you work with that you want to engage in the network together has been helpful. People have come as a co-partnership to learn together so they can build on an initiative and go out and get additional funding together. So it gives you some seed space to plan in a partnership role. And then I do think the young people themselves, figuring out a feedback loop that you can get information in real time and a structure to give it back to the general community you're serving is very helpful, whether that's on your website or a media outlet. But the idea of sharing back the learning, I think is extremely important as well. If I had to name the top 2 or 3 in applying the framework. But the Creator Archetype is just anything we do with young people, those domains we incorporate in all teaching and learning that we do. Training adults and also the direct delivery for young people.
Okay, great.
Hey, Erin, I have a couple of questions for you, and they're not exactly connected. But the first is, around the table on Monday, there will be at least one and maybe 2 who are there representing the small business community of Oklahoma City. The small business community seems to be finding their collected conscience and would like to better organize and then have a say in these sorts of things. In your experience with Big Thought, which does better with these opportunity youth kids, the larger places of work or the smaller businesses that might be a little bit more relatable and personable?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm glad you're asking it too. We traditionally probably, John, had been looking at big corporations because we're headquarter offices to Toyota, to AT&T. And so we tend to look at those big dogs, and we have history with a lot of them from a funder, right? So they've been philanthropy, they've been giving, which is great. To host the workforce has been different though. And even for them, they had to think of themselves differently. But that's okay. We've been educating them as we work with them to be more open to some of these young folks. I would say this past year though, we started looking at a construction company based out of Fort Worth. And they came to our alternative school and they said, you know what, it's not perfect work, but if any of your young men want a summer job this summer, I will hire them, I will pay them good money, and that'll get them to the next thing. Because we also know not all kids are going to college. And so that sort of energy, and then we incorporated them into the incubator too. We wanted them to connect, understand how to make that the most meaningful experience we can. And so we're seeing it both ways. We do the systems work, John, so we invite everybody at the table. And so in the systems space, we started with art. So we would invite the big museums, the DMA, but we also invited the Pan-African Museum that focused on African history. We invited the smaller museums. So we believe in both, and we do. I think that it would be interesting because I agree, the smaller the org, probably the better connected they are for some youth to feel comfortable, safe, and feel like they can have somebody work with them. So I would say both are very important. And the mission is to see everybody at the table as equal, to be honest, in a way.
Yeah. Okay. The second question is, thank you for that. We won't have big business represented. We'll only have small business represented.
Yeah, that's good though.
but there is the slim possibility that I'll have somebody there who works with people in the neurodivergent
Yeah,
field, and
great.
might also, if I can get him to return my text, have somebody there who works in the area of veteran job placement.
Great, good,
So
good.
do those two populations
Yeah.
also need to fall within the 16 to 24 age group?
No, I think that, well, I'll say this, not just to help people find a job. I think, a few more minutes, sorry, multitasking, not doing a good job. The idea is for the neurodivergent population, it is for young people. However, we still open with networks who can support that work, period. And so I don't think that we would limit any adult who's also interested in working. Now, for the military families, it is young people of veterans. So it would be a young person impacted by a parent who's away on orders somewhere in the military.
I got
Yeah.
you. Okay. All right. Thank you.
No, thank you. Excited.
Erin, I have a quick question. Excuse me. What role, if any, does faith play in Big Thought?
We are a nonprofit now, so we are not like faith driven through our mission and our North Star. However, the church community is huge in this network, in our network that we build with systems. So we support churches. We do not proselytize this as a nonprofit. We don't do it particularly because of the mission of the organization and a little bit of the status of we are. But churches are pivotal as being network supporters in our network directly and have supported us financially. There are a lot of big churches in Dallas, by the way. They've funded things and they've actually brought folks into the network directly.
Thank you.
No, thank y'all. This has been great.
Well, we appreciate the time,
Yep.
Erin. And
We can follow up anytime, James Cullen. Y'all let me know. And,
okay.
you know, we're trying to figure out how that next step can look. So John, your visit will be helpful. And if we want to come back for another conversation, and if anybody's interested, we still have sessions that y'all can be part of. So once you see the timeline, follow up with us and we can make that available for everyone too. So
Sounds
thank
good.
you all.
Thank
Okay.
you, Erin.
Thank you. Good luck with everything, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye-bye.
Did you have anything you wanted to say? You do good. Our next webinar, by the way, will be with Frontline Justice, which is working on community justice workers in communities, similar to community health workers that work in communities, and a collaboration with them that could be a nice bridge for what we did in criminal justice and police reform. So we'll give you more information about that as we get closer to it. So thank you for participating today.